Right on.
Is that the nod?
That's the nod.
Okay.
Yep.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the Casual GM Podcast. I'm your host, Drew, and alongside me, as always, my co-host, Mike. Mike, how are you?
Just as handsome as ever. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I thought that there was a lot of good football this last weekend, including some of the things the Lions did, and we're going to talk
a lot
about
of bad football too.
Well, we're going to talk about that as well. So where do you want to start? Do you want to start with some of the good, or do you want me to start with some of the bad?
Well, let's go with the bad so we can finish everything going good.
Sure. So I'll start with the Lions. Okay. So some of the things that I saw them do that I felt were negatives basically consisted of what I considered to be them doing things that they had control over that I felt cost them the game. So basically mistakes, right? So the pick six that Jared Goff threw, he was going to throw to TJ Hawkinson.
Yep.
And it looks like they were not on the same page with what route TJ was going to run. Goff expected him to go toward the sideline. TJ ran up the seam. And that looked like one of those things where like both players have to see it exactly the same way in order for the route to be completed correctly. So I worry about that. And because not just because it was a pick six. The only reason it was a pick six was because Kaiser White, I believe his name is, a linebacker for the Eagles, managed to dive and tip the ball directly to one of their corners who managed to catch it and run it back for a score.
Yeah.
But there were two additional times during the game where I thought that Jared Goff and his receivers were not on the same page. And that to me says there's some kind of communications problem here, whether that's calling the play in the huddle. Hey, Funky. Whether that's a communication problem in the huddle, whether that's just not being on the same page with your wide receivers. This can't happen.
Yeah.
I mean, like, regardless of any other thing. I mean, he was there all through OTAs and training camp.
Yeah.
Playing with these guys. He didn't play in the preseason
confident, Drew.
So that's the other thing I wanted to talk about. Like, if this is confident Jared Goff, God help us all, right?
So there was one play, and so we're going to start probably nitpicking a bit, right? And then we'll move into some of the good plays, right?
100%.
There were good things and there were bad things. So that's why I want to start with the good, because that way we can get rid of the bad, so we can get that out of the way and focus on the good. I think actually Funky is probably talking about the play that drove me nuts the most. Everything that I disliked about Jared Goff was encapsulated in one play. It was like a 3rd and 6. He has just a little bit of pressure. He panics. He throws it to the short guy, King check down, misses him wildly. And directly behind the short guy, about 10 yards, was another guy, completely beat his man. He was 3 strides in front of him. So I'm like, he got pressure and panicked. He made a bad decision. He threw it short instead of looking long. His ball placement was poor. I mean, 3 feet in front of the player, uncatchable is poor. But, like, he had no zip on the ball. Like, everything that I just don't really like about Jared Goff was encapsulated in that one play, and it frustrated me for the entire rest of the game.
Sure. So I think that maybe some time at practice this week should be making sure that everybody's on the same page and that they understand the game plan going into Washington. So my second thing that to me was absolutely 100% in control of the Detroit Lions, where they're giving back percentage points towards winning the game, is Tracy Walker's ejection. So I was not watching the game live, but when I looked back, hey, Chrome.
What's up, Chrome?
When you're playing against a mobile quarterback and you're a defender, now Tracy Walker played well up until this point. So in my opinion, if you know you're playing against a mobile quarterback and he's running, you might, as a defender, you might as well be playing two-hand touch. It sucks.
Yeah,
they are hamstringing defenders, like with the league rules. But that is understood. And because no one wants Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen to get a concussion and not play and hurt the league, right? So
yeah.
I get it. It's frustrating. You can't do it, though. So this is what happened. He slides. Tracy goes in to try and tackle him. It's a bang play. Refs call a penalty, unnecessary roughness, right?
Yeah.
So Tracy Walker gets up. Dallas Goedert. So if this was the Lions, I think all Lions fans would be like, "Good job, Dallas Goedert! Like, way to stick up for your quarterback."
Guy, right?
Exactly. And so he gives Tracy a shove, right? Little push. Tracy, as a human being, does not appreciate that. And, they're not winning. And, he just got called for a penalty. And so he, like, when I looked at it, I was like, that's a pretty weak slap, Tracy. Like, if you're going to slap a dude with a helmet on, like, make sure he feels it at least. Like, I see guys.
There's more of a push.
Yeah. Like, I see guys hitting each other harder on the helmet, like when they score a touchdown.
Yeah.
So, if you're going to hit him, like, at least earn the penalty, but then I don't think that's the one that he got in trouble for. Avonte Maddox sees him kind of slap at Goddard,
goes after
another push, and then Tracy, like, it wasn't a punch by any stretch, but like he swung.
Yeah, it was.
And then he gets.
To me, it was a swat. It was like a get out of here, leave me alone.
If you're gonna take your hand and you're gonna hit an opposing player in the helmet with it, they're gonna call it a punch, right? So, and then because he did that, he got his second DQ for the game, and they kicked him out. And that was a problem because he was playing well. I think he had like 10 tackles, and like he was really involved in everything that they were doing.
Yeah.
And he hurt his team twice. He hurt him by the penalty, and then he hurt him because then he was not on the field to finish the game when we absolutely could have used him. So, yes, Goff did get sacked, and they missed that face mask call. 100% agree. There's no, I'm sure somebody from like whoever gauges the referees for the NFL is like, you straight up missed this one.
Yeah.
But this one,
he got hit after the whistle a couple times. Like, I'm like, if you're going to call the hit on Walker, Goff gets blown up one time. I don't say blown up, but hit hard enough where he went flying backwards, and there was no call. I'm like, at least call it consistently. And they're human. I get it. I've been a referee for sports before. It's a thankless job, but they get paid a lot of money to just get it right. That's all we ask.
My only point is that if you are going to put power into the referee's hands by giving them the choice as to whether or not to throw a penalty flag, you are going to have to live with them throwing it.
Yeah.
And so, like, at least with this one play with Tracy Walker, he had the option. He had the decision to make whether or not he was going to smack Jalen Hurts or two-hand touch him down, and he chose the wrong one. Yeah. So he gave the referees an opportunity to throw that flag, and it hurt the Lions. So I think you can call it weak, but like,
no, not that one. There was another one where I think it was third down again, and it was right after he did a run pass option, kept the ball, and he had just thrown the ball, and Anzalone bumps him, knocks him backwards, falls down, just barely falls down. Yep. And then they're like, yep, late hit. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, half the time he keeps the ball. Like, I can't just stop. Mm-hmm. And they called it, but then that's where I was talking about the just keep it consistent. Like, they knock him down, we get a 15-yard penalty. They knock Goff down, we get nothing. I'm just like, if you want to treat the quarterbacks that way, that's fine. They are the showpiece of the league. Just be consistent about it.
I'm saying that I don't need them to be consistent about it, because the only side that should be flagged for things like that are the opponents, because we should not be doing it. Don't put yourself in the position to be flagged, is my point.
So they absolutely have to be consistent.
Like the team,
literally,
I have been on the bandwagon that this rebuild is not done.
No, for sure.
So I think that Philadelphia is probably going to win their division. I feel they're an excellently constructed team.
Yeah.
They have flaws, but I think they're good. And you just played them to within a field goal. And this team beat you 44-6 last year, and they got better, a lot better in the offseason.
Yeah.
So
did you play into a field goal? The pick six was a difference in the game.
Yes, right.
A fluky play was the reason why they, contributing factor to why they won.
Here's another factor that I think helped them. The onside kick, which made no sense to me whatsoever. That's just another example of like a low percentage play that you're giving back to your opponent. It's relatively simple in the NFL to kick the ball through the end zone and force a touchback, and you gave them 35 yards.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Make them go the extra 35 yards. I mean, if you don't know what will happen. It doesn't take much. I mean, I think they gained something like 400 yards, over 400 yards in the game. Yeah. So you're essentially giving them a scoring opportunity with that call, unless you get the ball back. And it's one of those hero calls, right? If they had gotten it back, he'd be a hero.
Right.
But they didn't. So he's a dog because it's a low percentage play. And I think that when you add these things up, it equals to about a field goal's worth of mistakes.
The dropped passes.
Yes.
We had a lot of drops.
So I believe that Amon-Ra St. Brown had 2 drops all of last season, and he had two on Sunday.
Yeah.
So that's not good. Chark dropped 1. I think Hawkinson had 1. Basically every pass catching eligible person outside of maybe Swift had a drop, and I don't know if that's game 1 jitters. I don't know if that's just a fundamentals thing. Yeah. But you can't. I mean, if you're gonna give up 6 pass plays, I mean, you're giving points back. You're not converting on first downs. You're not putting yourself in scoring position. You're not forcing the defense into different play calls. You're hurting yourself, and so when Dan Campbell on Hard Knocks was talking about grit, this is part of that to me. To me, this is you have to grit, you have to keep your head up, you have to understand that this was a mistake, you have to accept the criticism, and you have to get better. The only problem with making a mistake is not learning from it, right? So for the Washington game, I would hope that some of these things are reduced or eliminated. And I think the fewer mistakes that you make in sports, the more likely it is that you will win. And they have to put themselves in a position to win and not putting themselves in a position to lose. And so it's just these, 6 drops, an onside kick, a pick 6, a penalty that you didn't need to make leading to an ejection, on and on and on. Just the cumulative effect of these plays, I think, was the difference in the game. Here's one more thing I think that was the difference in the game.
Okay.
Jalen Hurts murdered them. Okay. Yeah. Now we can talk all we want about putting a spy on Jalen Hurts. That's fine. To me, what that said was they wanted to take away everything else but than Jalen Hurts, but didn't do a good enough job of it. But Jalen Hurts makes $1.6 million and Jared Goff makes $31.1 million. That is a difference of $29.5 million that this year the Philadelphia Eagles can go out and acquire new talent. You know who costs $25 million on their team? A.J. Brown. They spent that money that they saved by having a second-round quarterback who's mobile, who's more dynamic and can beat you with his legs, and he threw for more yards than Jared Goff did as well. They went out and they spent basically that money to acquire a top wide receiver, and all he did was have 10 catches for 155 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah.
And I'll give Jeff Okudah a lot of credit. He did an excellent job on Devonta Smith, but A.J. Brown ate Amani Araraway's lunch on Sunday. Like it was, I mean, and like it wasn't completely a raw way. I looked at the matchups over the snap counts from the game, but like you put Will Harris in, and what the first thing that they did was they went deep on him, and Will Harris was trying to tackle AJ Brown, and it looks like a little kid trying to tackle his older brother in backyard football, and like AJ Brown is literally just like dragging his ass down the field, and like it wasn't until like a safety came over to help where you were actually able to bring the guy down. You have to cut Will Harris. He's awful. I cannot believe that there is another defensive back that they feel like when we get guys coming off a pup, don't cut Chase Lucas. Don't cut some of these guys that are young and like rookies and learning and stuff. Cut fucking Will Harris. I can't stand it.
So there's a couple things that I'll get to Will Harris in just a second. So because I agree 100%. Since we're talking about the bad, we'll get to the good, right? Some of the bad was also I thought Goff played poorly in general.
I thought the first half was quite bad.
What? Just because he was 3 for 9 for 6 yards at one point and only ended up with 54 yards.
Just through the first quarter.
Yeah, 3 for 9 for 6 yards and an interception. Then he only had 54 for the half.
Yeah.
But like when you look at the PFF scores, when you look at who did what on our team, Jared Goff was the 30th ranked quarterback.
This should not be a surprise.
He was the 32nd ranked. No, I'm sorry. He was 30th ranked overall, 32nd ranked in passing. That's bad news, right?
Bad news bears.
When we look at the scores as a team, our team had the lowest pass blocking score in the league.
It's interesting.
The team grade was at 37.
So
the second worst was the Rams.
Oof, boy, they ran into a buzzsaw out there in Los Angeles. So
yeah. So like as a team, we did not pass block worth a damn. We were horrendous. Individually, Will Harris had the third worst coverage rank. Anzalone was second worst, and Juju Hughes was the first worst. The worst. Yeah,
there we go.
For coverage. But you're looking at like Okuda and those guys. Tracy Walker, he had a 70.
He did well.
He was great.
Right up until he threw himself out of the game, he was great.
Yep. Okuda had an 82.8 for his tackling score, and his coverage was 58.7, which was kind of in the middle. He was in the top 20 or something like that for cornerbacks. Like, he had some good moments for sure.
Yeah, I was very impressed. Like as far as like the two outside corners are concerned, I very much feel that Jeff Okuda has a higher ceiling than Amani Araraway. Like if he keeps playing like this, I would expect that eventually he will end up covering number ones on the other side. And like Amani is just so much more, that covering a number two is so much more in his wheelhouse. Like right now, I think Jeff just needs to keep playing like this until the switch happens. I mean, I was very pleased. I was a little concerned that Okuda was cramping up like in the third quarter.
Yeah.
But maybe just get that guy some more Gatorade, throughout the game. You want to talk about some good stuff, or?
Yeah, let's talk about some good stuff.
Can I go first?
What are your highlights? We want to start with some PFF good stuff, or do you want to talk about just like what I saw? What you saw?
Here's the thing that I saw that had me absolutely so once I actually watched the game, this is what I saw that I was just thrilled with. Deandre Swift.
Yeah.
So this is the thing about Deandre Swift. I know it was his best game that he's ever played, but like this was the thing that I was so excited about with Deandre Swift. This guy is running through tackles this year. Like there were so many times when I saw a Philadelphia defender come up and like try and get like an arm around him, and he just like powered through that. Like you weren't going to get him down unless you got an arm around his waist and like dragged him to the ground. He's
listening to Coach Staley.
Yeah, he looks so much stronger to me. And if he's, I mean, like, so when the season came out, like right before the season, he said, I want to have like 1,000 rushing yards and 1,000 receiving yards, which would be like amazing, you know?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, he did run for 144 in the first game. Like he's on pace.
Yeah.
You know, and like 18 touches, 170 all-purpose yards or whatever it was, and a score. Like that's fantastic. Like I will take anything close to that every week. You know, that was fine. You know, so very impressed with his contribution. If he keeps playing like
rated, he was our highest rated player.
Yeah, and it showed. And
our quarterback was the 15th highest rated offensive player on our team. You cannot win games.
BT Dubs, there's only 11 out there at a time. So
right? Yeah. He was behind Matt Nelson, our backup left tackle.
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
And I'm sure that snap count that Nelson turned in is.
He had 5 whole snaps.
Yeah, I mean, like, right. So Stenberg played terribly. I mean, 2 false starts right off the bat was bad. Apparently Sewell helped. Yes, apparently Sewell helped calm him down. But like, this is one of the things that the Lions still need to address is like interior offensive lineman depth. Like having a living, breathing human being doesn't mean that you have good depth, you know, and he is effectively a living, breathing human being. So not thrilled about Stenberg overall. Like I know that Ragnow did not score well per PFF, but like
right,
considering that he had I'm sure the groin is not 100%, and that he had to go up against Jordan Davis for like 20 snaps. You know, Jordan Davis only played 155 snaps last season at Georgia, and he played 22, I think, you know, on Sunday, you know, but like you have got to be able to play more snaps than that. I mean, 30, 35 snaps a game. Like, I mean, what he can do is impressive, but unless you're going to be amazingly impactful in that limited amount of playing time, I just can't get there with a guy like that. So like there's a prospect from Clemson who's going to be a first round pick this upcoming draft named Brian Breesy. I would much rather have a defensive tackle like him, and I'm dropping that name now so that when we get to March and I'm like Brian Breesy, you guys are like, oh, I remember about Drew talking about that back in September. So because I still don't think the defensive line is done, even with everybody healthy. I don't think that it's done. So did you see that they restructured Brocker's contract today? You're muted.
I am muted.
Yeah.
Accidental button clicks.
Okay.
We saved about $2 million on the cap, I think. Yeah.
So see, this is one of those things where you're given percentage points back, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, this was a drop pass. So
it was my bad.
So what was something that you thought the Lions were? What was a positive for them?
So there are a couple things. Number one, and this is something that had happened all last year.
Mm-hmm.
We fought through adversity. We didn't give up, and we damn near came back and won. Right. So yes, at the end of the day, wins and losses are the only thing that matters, and we lost. There's no moral victories, but there are morale victories, right? And I think
did you just change the pronunciation?
No, there's an E in morale. There's no E in moral.
Is that a mushroom?
But there are morale victories, right? Yeah. We know that we can come back. We know that pick 6 was the difference, and score wise, and we never gave. You like that?
It's a day brainer.
Yep. So I thought that was great. I thought that some of the young guys were really impressed. That really impressed me. And I know you already know this because I mentioned this in our Discord. But who was our highest ranked defensive player?
Malcolm Rodriguez, or Rodrigo, as he has been named.
6th round linebacker is our highest rated defender. And that's not because he was bad and everybody else was worse. Like, he played great.
Yep. So, I mean, if this is the starting point, and I mean, like, I think that we will see offenses throughout the rest of the year. They're going to throw either more complex things at him or like just try and do things differently that might test him as a rookie. But like, this was a very promising start for him. I was very impressed. I liked him. I heard that Dan Campbell say that he had no missed assignments. PFF chalked up 2 missed tackles to him, but like, to be honest, like I will live with that performance week in, week out, especially from a 6th round pick.
Yeah.
Anzalone, so like people are always harping on Anzalone, but like there's a couple of position groups next year that have like one guy who's a current starter whose contract will be up, and you can bring in somebody to replace them, right? And so like Anzalone is one of those guys. I would be very surprised if Anzalone is on this team in 2023. I don't see any reason why Rodriguez wouldn't get the start next week, and maybe he doesn't let go of that. So if it turns out you found a starter, and not just like a starter because the team doesn't have a lot of talent on it, but like a starter who's like a legit dude who could start for other teams at like off-ball linebacker, great pick. I mean, just a fantastic pick. Like, it reminds me of Moneyball, where like, have you seen Moneyball?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I love that movie. It's like people are passed over for a number of biased reasons, and like, this is Chad Bradford. Like, his defect is that he pitches funny. Like I know a guy from other Discord groups named William Barrett who helps coach on the Western Michigan University Broncos linebacking coaching staff. And he's maintained that if Malcolm Rodriguez was 6'1", he would have been a 2nd round pick, and like, if his defect is that he's 2 inches shorter than what you would want a linebacker to be, I don't fucking care.
Right.
Like, I'll give up the 2 inches to get a starter at 6th round money, So yeah, very pleased. So, and let me just say this. I mean, I kind of alluded to it earlier, and like, we're almost 30 minutes in and we have some other stuff to talk about today, but the Philadelphia Eagles were a good team last year. They made the playoffs. They got better. They're projected to win their division, and the Detroit Lions played them to what I would consider to be an effective standstill.
Yep.
That's hopeful to me. I would want them to get the win. They didn't. But I think going into Washington, that is a unit, that is a team that does not have an effective, dynamic quarterback, and I think that they are going to, if they still bring the energy that they brought for the Philadelphia game, which I think the last 7 games of last year and, so far the first game this season, they're going to bring it.
Yep.
It's going to be, I mean, you got a chance to get a win, and then listen to this. This is the slate of quarterbacks they're going to face here and through the first like 6 games.
Yep.
We get Carson Wentz,
Win.
Kirk Cousins, Geno Smith,
win,
Mac Jones. Then there's a bye week.
win.
And you have Cooper Rush.
I mean, we do have the 5th easiest schedule in the entire NFL.
Yeah, but it just got easier because like Tyron Smith and Dak Prescott both got hurt from the Cowboys, and they're on our list.
Yep.
I know that Seattle got a win, which really only helps the Lions, to be honest. And
watched that game. First time I ever watched the Manning cast all the way through.
Sure.
Those guys are so funny. Oh my God.
Yeah, they're good.
It's very entertaining.
I thought Eli in the food truck was hilarious.
Yeah.
Because no one knew who he was. He's like a 2-time winning Super Bowl. Could be a Hall of Famer someday. So
yeah, I mean, like those are mediocre a bit. Well, outside of Cousins, who's I would put in the top half, right? I think he's better than mediocre.
Yes.
I think he's both underrated and overrated.
If anyone could be, it's him, right?
Yes, exactly. But like Carson Wentz doesn't scare me. Geno Smith doesn't scare me. The way that the Patriots played and Mac Jones, I'm not super scared. Like they did not play well. The bye week, I think we won't lose that week.
I think that's a pretty good bet. Yeah.
And then Cooper Rush, I've never even heard of the guy before.
So I mean, I've heard of him, but like he's everything that you would stereotypically think of a guy that's going to come in and be a backup, right? So
yeah.
I've already got my $20 on the Lions beating Washington this upcoming week. I won $10 on the Philly game. So so far I'm sitting pretty. Hopefully they'll pay off. So yeah, I'm pretty hopeful. I think it was, even though we didn't win, I think there's some good things that happened, some very clear things to improve on.
Yeah.
And I still think the arrows pointed up. So
totally agree.
Yeah. So I really think that through the first 7 weeks, but 6 games, the Lions have a real chance to go 500. And then after Thanksgiving, their slate gets super, super easy. So plus you'll get hopefully we'll get Pascal and Onwuzurike and Jamison Williams at some point during the season, and we'll work those guys in. And then hopefully the talent level goes up a little bit. They start getting some, in-game experience, and then who knows? So all good things.
Well, let's kind of move to the topic of the day. This is something you and I kind of talked a little about over Discord and our previous conversations at the local watering hole. Is kind of the idea of entrenched thinking and what that means. So I think the one-liner you gave me to describe it was, thinking from the average football consumer does not evolve as quickly as the game does itself, which I thought was perfectly succinct. So bravo to you.
Thanks.
Let's talk a little bit about that. And I guess what of that concept, what do you think is the biggest thing that the casual football fan thinks that is wildly out of date? Because that's kind of what it is, right? You're thinking about out of date content or topics or philosophies because you're entrenched in the old way. Right. So what is the biggest one that you think?
That the running game matters.
The running game matters.
To the extent,
ironically, that was the only thing that got us where we were last game.
Exactly. So not that it does not matter at all, but that the emphasis and the dedication to it on the spectrum of from never to always, I think most fans would say it needs to be closer to always than never. And my opinion has changed over the years. So I think we need to be closer to never than we do to always.
Yeah.
So let me explain why. So there's a couple of things that I think that we, just as an average casual fan, not going online, not trying to figure out anything, knew about what football is doing just by watching games in the NFL. I think over the last 5 to 10 years, if anybody is paying attention to the NFL on a week-by-week basis, they could say to themselves, boy, it feels like they're throwing a lot more, and I'm seeing more wide receivers line up at on these snaps on a game-by-game, play-by-play basis. It's because the teams are throwing more.
Right.
And the reason why is it is more likely that you will get a 10 or 15 plus yard gain on a pass than it is on a running play. And a pass takes up less time than a run.
So not even just the 10 or 15 yarders. Those are definitely easier to get. Anything what they call the splash play or the big play, I think is considered a 15-yard run or a 20-yard pass, and you're much more likely to get on the pass. The average pass play is something like 5.7 or 6.7 yards per pass play.
Yeah.
And that's not per completion, but per play.
Right.
Right. And your best running backs may get 4.5 yards per run.
Yeah.
So you were just in the other part with that is the quarterback completion percentage because of the way that we're running the more spread type offenses where you have more options out there. There's more emphasis on the passing game from the rules side of things.
Yep.
Your good quarterbacks are completing 68 to 78%, a normal day. It used to be like, oh my gosh, someone completed 70% of their passes. That's amazing. And now it's
Right.
like, he completed 68 and it's kind of meh. Like it was okay. And just if you complete 68% of an average of a 7 or a 6.5 yard pass, you could pass every single down and march right down on average. You can't do that
for the league average. Now, what you were talking about with like some of the better running backs in the league might be up near like 3.5, 4 yards, maybe more per carry.
Right.
Like, okay, if you have that guy, maybe you run 5 to 10% more often.
Yeah.
However, not everyone in the league has that guy. Yep. Right. So for the majority of teams in the league, of which Detroit is one, I would say that even with Jared Goff or with any quarterback, really, whether it's a backup to the best quarterback in the NFL, Josh Allen, but like you are better served by going incompletion, completion than you are run.
Yep.
Because even though there's the chance that you have an incomplete pass every time that you throw the ball, there's still the chance that a running play doesn't get back to the line of scrimmage. So I would rather than utilize the plays that have the higher average gain per play. So I looked up some stats. Well, not some stats, some things that happened last year. So the teams in the playoffs last year for both the NFC and the AFC, I looked up what their average yards running the ball were per game and how many yards they gave up on average last season.
Okay.
So of the 7 teams in each conference, the Los Angeles Rams and the Cincinnati Bengals were the 2 teams in the Super Bowl, right?
Yep.
We know who won. The Rams had the 25th best running game by average yards last season, and the Bengals had the 23rd best running game by average yards last season. So is that the entirety of how effectively they ran the ball? No, it's not. But both teams have not immobile quarterbacks. I would never say that Matthew Stafford is immobile, but he is not a Jalen Hurts, right? Like he is not going to threaten to run when the play breaks down. He can scramble and he might be able to pick up a first down, or if there is a pasture in front of him, he might be able to go and convert or something to that effect. But he is not going to beat you with his legs.
Right.
And like most of the teams on this list, the better that the teams got and the further they went in the playoffs, the worse they were at running the ball. And so like when you look, one of the common complaints that I hear about like the way rosters are constructed, whether it's the Lions or other teams in the league. Yeah, correct. Yeah. Funky hit the nail on the head on that one. One of the common things I've heard about like roster construction from the select section of the Lion fan base who don't think the Lions are doing it correctly is that the only thing you really need to win is a good defense and a good running game. And the rest will work itself out, right?
Balanced offense, if you will.
Correct. So I think that if you're looking to compete with the teams who are making the playoffs, going deep in the playoffs, getting to the Super Bowl, winning the Super Bowl, we do not see the excellent defense, good running game teams making those pushes. Right. So about the closest thing that I think that we could point to in the recent past are the Tennessee Titans. And I think that there's some real kind of like nitpicky points that you can make about their defense not being much better than league average. They just happen to have an absolute horse when it comes to a running back who has literally carried that team through some lower percentage play calling and coaching, like on the offensive side of things.
Yep.
So like, while I am thrilled that Deandre Swift went out and had himself an afternoon on Sunday, the long and the short of it is the Lions still lost that game. So the myth that you need a running back to get 100 yards in order to win a football game, to me, is just not true. Like, I would much rather run the ball the way the Philadelphia Eagles did than on average than like have to rely on the game of his life from Deandre Swift week in and week out. Is it something that you should be able to do in case you have a lead and it's late in the game and you need to salt away the clock? Absolutely it is.
Right.
But use your passing game to go get that lead.
Yeah, it used to be you use the run game to open up the pass.
Right.
Now it's the opposite. You use
Correct.
the passing game to open up the run. You need to pull those defenders out of the box.
Right.
Get them in the secondary, and then get that running back that can break a tackle, get around the edge. That's the only way you're going to get yards. If they're going to be in the box, the defenders are too fast. Right? They're too fast. They're too good at tackling, except for the Lions because we were terrible at it this week. But you can't count on that. And between the tackles, they're so big. There is no room between the tackles anymore.
Right.
So you definitely have to pass to set up the run. And whether it's a handoff run or it's a dump off run.
Right.
I mean, when you look at Goff's numbers, he had like 212 yards, but there was like a 40-yard dump off. He dumped it here, and Swift ran for 40 yards. That was, that was a good chunk of his yardage there. But yeah, passing. I think right now the balanced offense. Back in my day, Barry Sanders, your balanced offense was 20 to 30 carries a game for your running back and 20 to 30 pass attempts. About 50-50, maybe even a little bit more rushing than passing. And now I think if you have a balanced offense, you're probably passing the ball at least 2/3 of the time.
Yeah, I would say so. Like the idea that you're going to have like a 20 attempt rusher week in, week out, and if you don't have one, you need to go get one. That era is gone.
Yeah, those are now the entrenched thinking we're talking about.
Right. So like one of the things that I've noticed like myself struggling with when it comes to like, well, what should we be doing? Is I keep going back and I keep thinking about things like that announcers would say when I was watching a football game. So I have watched football since my earliest memory of watching football is when I was 7. So like I've been watching football for 33 years. So however many games a year for that amount of time for 3 hours, I've listened to announcers narrate what's going on, right? And a lot of them say very similar things. Well, well, John, what do you think they got here? 3rd and 3. And he's like, well, I would line up in the eye and I would, jam it down their throats. And, this is when you got to show that you're a man and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I'd rather win a football game and you think less of me as a man, to be honest. I mean, like, I just want to win football games. I could give a shit about everything else. Like, so much of what I hear from like the segment of the Lions fan base that thinks that Brad Holmes isn't drafting well, Dan Campbell's not a good coach, the roster's not where it needs to be because we didn't draft a safety and a linebacker segue. To me, it's just like listening to those announcers when I was a kid. It's the same arguments. It's just happens to be 2022 and not 1997. So, but that's going to take me to my next like talking point about like entrenched thinking, and that's that certain positions matter when they have lost productivity and prestige, not prestige, but like importance when it comes to the modern day NFL. So once again, trying to keep this as much about the Lions as I possibly can. One of the things that, you know, we were led to believe was that like Kyle Hamilton, a safety from Notre Dame, was a real option for the Lions at 2. Turns out he never was, right? Like I guess there's like a future or a past now where, you know, the Jacksonville Jaguars do the smart thing and take Aiden Hutchinson number 1, right? And then what do the Lions do at 2 if he's off the board? But we don't live in that. We don't live in that reality. You know, we live in a reality where Jacksonville said we would rather have Trayvon Walker. And so Detroit showed you, like, I didn't guess about this.
Right.
You know, like I watched it happen in your living room with much excitement, you know, and the NFL yells at them because, right. And you're getting ahead of me, Funky, you crafty son of a bitch. So, you know, one thing that like they turn that card in so fast that the only thing that I could think of is no matter what, they wanted this player the most, you know, and they got him, and they don't want to entertain trade offers. They don't want to risk losing him. They're just like, this is a player that we want to have in Detroit. And so what I was curious about was who that guy was, you know. And so when I had to wait for Goodell to come to the stage, to the podium and announce it, I'm thinking, is it Kyle Hamilton? Like, is it Malik Willis? Like, could it be, like, God, let it be Aiden Hutchinson, right? And it was Aiden Hutchinson, you know. And so, you know, they bring him home, and, you know, now he's going to be in Detroit, hopefully for a long time.
Right.
So, but he's a defensive end. He's an edge rusher.
You were so nervous.
Oh, God.
You were just a wreck. You're just waiting. You're like, oh my gosh, picks in already. What does that mean, Mike? What do you mean that picks in? I can't believe they do it that fast. Are they allowed to do it that fast? Oh my God, what's it going to be? It better not be Kyle Hamilton. For the love of God, please make it Hutch. It was fantastic.
I think that's pretty much verbatim what I said. I have a tendency to talk super fast when I'm like super nervous. But and then I let out a scream like an 11-year-old girl when they finally did pick him. So, and scared your kids. So, so that was a fun moment for me because like one of my favorite all-time Wolverines gets to play for the team that I really want to be good in the NFL. And so this is one of the few times where like I feel like I get to root for a guy, you know, as opposed to just the Lions being a collection of players, you know. So I'm thrilled about that. But the point is, to get back on topic here, the point is that his position matters in the NFL. Like, and it's not me saying that because I think that edge rusher is just a better position than a linebacker. The reason I'm saying that is because the NFL demonstrates how they feel about certain positions based upon what they pay those players. You know, technically you could pay one player $200 million a year, right? You wouldn't be able to field a team, but like you could pay a guy a disproportionate amount of the cap if you thought he was the difference between, you know, somebody like Superman, if you wanted to play in the NFL or whatever, it would be worth $200 million a year. And then you just run veterans out to fill up the spots. And it's like, oh, you win every game 110 to nothing, but that's not the reality, right? So like a couple of weeks ago, you made a great chart where we took a look at the top 10 salaries by position. And like the thing that I really came away from that conversation with is that if you have X number of $10 million a year players on your team, you can't pay 22 guys $10 million a year. And that's just your starters. You have to fill another 32 players, 31 players just to have a roster. You know, and you're going to pay the other 31 people $1 million a year at the minimum, you know, or close to it.
Yeah.
So that's 31 million. So now, like, how many $10+ million a year players can you have on your squad? Jared Goff, what we are paying Jared Goff is we are saying, well, the Rams said it and we decided to take it. Yep. Is that he's worth 3 of those guys.
Yeah.
Jerome Vernacci. I've never seen Jerome before. Welcome, Jerome.
Welcome. Yeah. I wasn't even paying attention to the comment section, so thank you for doing that.
He just popped up. A run game alone isn't going to win you games, but not having one makes you a one-dimensional. And as we've been accustomed to over the years, we just need to move the option to keep the defense honest too. Yeah. Ooh, he might be British. Look how he spelled defense. Are you from Britain, Jerome?
Oh, I wonder if the Roar of the Lion.
I wonder if this is a Roar of the Lions connection. Vernacci. Okay, thank you. The phonetic spelling is very helpful.
Yes.
So,
but yeah, and
thanks for stopping by, man. We love to see you.
And he's right.
Australia, no way! Oh my God, that's so cool. Lions fans in Australia, who would have thought? That's awesome.
Good day, mate.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not gonna do that.
Let's not scare him away.
No, don't scare him away.
So, well, that's cool.
But he's right, so excited. It's not that a run game is going to win you the games, but you definitely need to have something.
Right.
So you're not one-dimensional. That's what we've been. The Lions have been one-dimensional for so long. We've never had a running game, and it just makes it harder for the quarterback and the receivers because they don't have to stack the box. They don't have to worry about it. They just sit back, and you get more interceptions that way. You get less separation that way. You get more double teams on your best wide receivers. So, yeah, you definitely need – running back is a position that needs to be on the field almost every
lounge.
Right?
Interesting.
Oh,
cool. So, quick tangent. Welcome. So, I was very worried that they were going to take Kyle Hamilton, right? And so, much like Saquon Barkley, 4 years into his rookie deal, still being one of the highest paid running backs on average. If we had drafted Kyle Hamilton, he's immediately going to be a top 10 highest paid safety in the league and therefore needs to play like it, which is asking a lot from a rookie. So when you draft some of these like higher priced positions, tackle, quarterback, edge rusher, you are getting yourself a savings. Like, in the perfect example of this recently is Philadelphia, right? So they move on from Carson Wentz. They draft Jalen Hurts in the second round. They're paying him nothing, $1.6 million in his third year. And they now have the ability to spend, more money on their cap to make their team better. The Lions don't have that ability. Like, we had to restructure Taylor Decker's contract. We had to restructure Michael Brocker's contract just to free up cap space so that we meet league regulations. So like, you can't invest heavily, which a top 15 draft pick in the NFL is investing heavily in positions that you're going to want to pay less than the premier positions in the NFL. So you need to basically invest your money wisely. And so, so I found this tweet today. This is Jason from overthecap.com. It's an excellent reference site if you want to talk about contract situations and they touch on roster buildings, and there's some really excellent articles that this guy puts out. But this is just another thing today. Like, this is not opinion. This is what the NFL is showing you how they feel about
playing. That really surprises me, though. This right here, right tackle dropping that much.
Well, I think the reason for that, and I might be wrong about this, is that like 2 or 3 years ago, Mike, there was a huge spike in right tackle money. Like, Ryan Ramczyk got paid. Who was the other guy? I cannot remember who.
Just mumble it and sound confident.
Robertson.
Oh yeah,
got it.
Yep. Yeah, he was fantastic. He got paid, bro.
He got a lot of money. But like, there was a spike, and so now I think that what teams are doing, and I think what this also says is that the NFL are decreasing money that they're paying to these positions. So linebacker, it's down 14%. So when they say linebacker, they mean off the ball linebackers. They do not mean edge rusher. So TJ Watt is an edge rusher. He's not a linebacker. TJ Watt does not count toward that.
Right. Von Miller, same way.
Right. People like those guys don't count as linebackers anymore. That's entrenched thinking. You have to understand their role and not the like position that goes in front of, you know, the two letters that goes in front of their jersey number or whatever. So almost a 15% decrease in money per year spent at that position from last season.
Yeah.
Not 10 years, not 5 years, not 2 years, 1 year. They're just not investing in this. And if you look at like the next tweet, where are they putting that money? Wide receiver.
Yep.
And having a good kicking game.
I'm assuming these are averages, right?
Yes,
so
average per year.
Who was it that was it Prater? No, not Prater. Who was the kicker? Maybe it was Prater.
It was Tucker.
Tucker just got a monster contract.
Yeah,
for a
kicker. Right, exactly.
So like he just raised the sea level for all kickers. So I think like that's a big thing. And then I'm just not good with names today. Who was the safety that just got paid like he was?
Derwin James.
Yeah.
But it's not just it, but I mean, so let's talk about this for a second. Let me bring up OTC real quick. So let's just quickly go through and look at like safeties. Derwin James, Minkah Fitzpatrick, they both got paid this season. Jamal Adams got paid a year before. Harrison Barnes got paid. Not Harrison Barnes. He's a basketball player. Harrison Smith recently got paid. Justin Simmons recently got paid. Those are the top 5 guys, you know, at that position. Like wide receiver, you know, like if we want to talk about wide receiver, like Tyreek Hill traded and extended. Devontae Adams traded and extended. DeAndre Hopkins, his deal is just immense from like 2 years ago. Cooper Kupp extended. AJ Brown traded an extension. Stephon Diggs extended. DK Metcalf extended. Deebo Samuel extended. Terry McLaurin extended. DJ Moore extended. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams extended. You know, like, and then poor Amari Cooper sitting down here with the Browns. But like, that's like 14 guys in a year that were all extended, and it reset the entire wide receiver market. So when we see a stat like this, that's like, hey, where are you guys putting your money? We're putting it into wide receivers. You absolutely have to have wide receivers that are capable of catching the ball if you want to compete. So like, let's talk about like safeties and linebackers here real quick. So like I went back and I took a look at the 2 teams in the Super Bowl, the Rams and the Bengals, and looked at like what they put into those 2 position groups for their starting linebacker and safety groups. So here's the Bengals. Davis Gunther was the 107th pick in the year that he was drafted. They paid him $980,000 in the Super Bowl year. Logan Wilson was the 65th pick in the year that he was drafted. When he played in the Super Bowl, they were paying him $1.1 million that year. Jermaine Pratt, the 72nd pick in his draft year, $1.1 million they were paying him to play that season and go to the Super Bowl. Jesse Bates, a player that was linked to the Lions when his contract negotiations broke down with the Bengals, was the 54th pick, and they were paying him last year $2.8 million. Von Bell was the 61st pick. He was the other Bengals safety, and they were paying him $5.4 million last year, which was more than double. Well, I'm sorry, slightly less than double anyone else on this list. And that's just the Bengals. So just some quick math: 5.4, 7, 8.2, 9.3, 10.4, 11.4 million for 5 guys.
Over 2 teams?
No, over 1 team. That's just the Bengals. So let's take a look at the Rams, right? Ernest Jones was a rookie. He was the 103rd pick, $1 million. Terrell Lewis, 84th pick, $1 million. Troy Reeder, UDFA, $854,000. Taylor Rapp, 61st pick, $1.2 million. Jordan Fuller, 199th pick in the draft, $822,000. It's less than the Bengals paid.
Yeah.
Those are the Super Bowl teams. So if they're not spending their money there, where are they spending it? Well, both teams had elite quarterback play, wide receiver rooms that were absolutely fucking stacked.
Yep.
You know, they had a legit tight end, but not a great one. And
yeah,
you know, where else are they spending their money? You know, like
defensive line.
Yeah,
the edge rushers. Well, Aaron Donald is both an edge rusher and an internal rusher. So
they pay him like an edge rusher.
He's a special dude.
Yeah. But like they also have Leonard Floyd, who's making some money this year. They traded for Von Miller. And then on the other side, the Bengals went into free agency last year and they paid Trey Hendrickson from the Saints to be there. And he played exceptionally well. I think he was a top 5 or top 10 in sacks last year.
Yeah.
So like, that's just it. Like if you want these guys on your team, you have to make a decision where you're going to skimp on money on your roster. Yeah. And like, it's like the way that the NFL has decided to do this, it's very obvious where they're skimping.
Well, and just to kind of like reiterate, I know you already talked about it once, but if you got the highest paid, which theoretically should be the best, you know, it doesn't always work out there that way. But if you get the best at every position and just one, you're $122 million over the cap.
Right.
And that's obviously not the 53 man.
Yeah.
And if you get the 10th best player, 10th highest paid, 10th best player, just one at each position, you are $14 million below the cap. You're barely going to sign your draft.
Well, you wouldn't be able to field a roster and sign your draft class with that much money, right?
So, like, you have to pick where, and a lot of it is going to be based on pieces that you have. You know, if you've already got one high-end edge rusher, maybe you don't add a second, or if you've got a high-end edge rusher and a good interior defensive player, then you don't add a second high-end edge rusher. But if you have two, maybe you don't have to go so much in the middle, or it's going to be like mix and match. But you can't do even the fit. I think we decided it was something like you would have to be at the 17th or 18th best to have it, like if you were to do it everywhere, right? To actually field a roster.
Right.
That's not going to win you a Super Bowl.
No, it's not.
Right? It might get you to the playoffs.
It might get you to the playoffs.
Maybe, but you have to get those elite players, and you have to hit on those when you get those contracts.
Yeah, 100%. You know, and so that's going to bring me to my third point on entrenched thinking, which is that rebuilds can be done quickly. And the long and the short of it is, if you are a team that has a foundation in something, you're right, it can be done quickly. So like the Chiefs, I think, would probably be good and a good example of this. They had Alex Smith 5 years ago. They trade up for Patrick Mahomes and they sit him for a year. And then ever since then, there has been some component of that team that they have had to replace. So that, you know, first it was like the defensive backfield. They go out and they get Tyrann Mathieu. Then it was the offensive line, and they signed Joe Thuney and they trade for Orlando Brown, right? And then it was this offseason, they trade Tyreek Hill and they bring in George Karlaftis as an edge rusher. They bring in, what is that kid's name from Washington? It doesn't matter. He's a cornerback. You know, they're addressing these top 5 positions, you know, and it's like, why would they let someone like Tyreek Hill go? Well, they let him go because they need to develop other positions so that they can continue to take advantage of Patrick Mahomes' tremendous talent, you know?
Yeah.
You know, and so all they did was add an edge rusher, a cornerback, and a wide receiver in the draft this year. Sky Moore, the kid from this cornerback from Washington, who I cannot remember his name, and George Karlaftis, who looks like an absolute beast. I kind of hate George Karlaftis because Michigan recruited him and he chose to go to Purdue like some bitch. But like, but he's an excellent player, you know. And so, no, he's probably a super nice guy. I was just really unhappy about that. So, can you imagine having Karlaftis and Hutch on the same team? Oh man,
they might have actually won the national championship.
I mean, Oh, so that was another thing I wanted to talk about. Hutch got double teamed on I was watching him all game. Like, that's where my eyes are going to go. Sorry. I have a total crush on the guy, but like, he got double teamed enough. Whether when he was inside, he got double teamed, and when he was outside, Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata handled him, because it's the best offensive line in football, and so like, here's my problem. Here's the reasoning I think why we're not done drafting for this line is that Charles Harris did nothing when Hutch is double teamed. Like, if the Eagles are going to dedicate a second body to effectively, and this is what Georgia did, in the national, in the college football playoff, was they doubled him, they ran plays away from him, they chipped, and they got the ball out quickly so that he could not impact the game. Yeah. Right. And so there were elements. I mean, certainly Philadelphia did not go to the same amount of effort that Georgia went to, but like, they put forth some effort. And so this is an impact that Hutchinson is bringing to the team. And if you cannot take advantage of that by having another guy basically be able to beat a one-on-one matchup, then you need to go out and get a guy that can do that. Otherwise, you're limiting Hutchinson's effectiveness. And so, like, when you had Barry Sanders and you went to the run and shoot offense, you're limiting what Barry Sanders can do for your team. Don't do that. Go the opposite.
Yeah.
So, like, I still think that this upcoming draft, the Lions would be pretty well served to continually to draft another edge rusher and another defensive tackle. Brockers is likely done. The Penasini retirement kind of caught everybody off guard. So, and like, you're not married to Demetrius Taylor or Isaiah Buggs. So, like, you have the ability to free up a little cap space by those guys and upgrade at the position and improve the depth. So why not do it?
Well, I think I'm sure we'll get more into like mocks and all that kind of stuff as
we will.
The year closes out and we start getting into draft season and stuff. But the challenge is
$300 for Game Pass.
What's that?
Australia is being a little stingy with their internet.
Yeah.
Why would a Game Pass be? It's the internet. It's everywhere at the same time, right?
I don't know how some of those services work.
If I was the NFL.com, I'd be like, here, anyone not in America, it's super cheap. Like, sign up and get addicted to this, right? Like, the first one's free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they don't have NFL Plus over there.
There's a lot that, like, sports franchises could learn from the drug trade.
Right.
Jerome, I know that the Roar of the Lions UK stream during the games and they talk about it. They can't watch it, but you might be interested in that.
And they kind of have that, like the accent you're used to, British.
Yeah.
Close best friend. Boy. But yeah, so what I was starting to say until we got kind of distracted there was one of the struggles is, it'd be great to have another edge rusher, interior defensive lineman. We also probably need a wide receiver, and we need a quarterback, and maybe a cornerback. We only have so many draft picks, and we only have so many high draft picks, right? So,
Mike, excellent segue for me.
What?
I know.
And the weird thing is, we didn't even rehearse that, so I'm not even sure.
We did not. It's a real kinship.
Yeah. So
here
what
on
are we
the stream
to?
That you can't rebuild quickly.
Yes.
So we kind of set it up, but that's a good segue. Here's why. I wrote down some thoughts. The Lions did not have a foundation.
Correct.
On this team. They traded Matthew Stafford as a part of
building
the rebuild.
Getting the assets to build the foundation.
Correct. And so, like, if you were going to start over, it would be around him. But you traded that so that you could 100% build the team your way. And who's doing the building? The new ownership group hired a new general manager and gave him a 5-year deal. That's unprecedented just in the league, and especially for a first-time GM.
Yeah, and sort of first-time coach.
Right. So Dan Campbell was an interim head coach in Miami for the better part of a season, was on the New Orleans Saints coaching staff, and they brought him over to be the full-time head coach, gave him a 6-year deal. also unprecedented.
Yeah.
What does that tell you off the bat? As soon as you hear those numbers, it tells me these guys have time.
Yep.
These guys have time before we're going to do something stupid like the Chicago Bears did and said, you need to be playing meaningful games in December, right? So in order to save their jobs, what do? They go and trade up for Justin Fields. They go and trade up for Tevin Jenkins in the second round. They burn a bunch of draft capital. Those guys are rookies. One of those guys got hurt, and they have a shitty season. They get fired anyways. And now the new group comes in, and they're like, you know what? We didn't draft Justin Fields.
Yeah.
And it sets your franchise back so much more. So you're giving the people who are making decisions a lot of time, like time to get acclimated, time to learn what they're doing, time to build the team. So the salary cap needed to be reset. Well, here we are. We've started the second season, and at the end of week 1, the Detroit Lions are only $4.5 million under the cap.
Only because we restructured 2 large contracts because we were over the cap.
Yeah. And so, like, what are we supposed to do if someone gets hurt? You know, knock on wood, we have people who are hurt who should be coming back in the early part of the season as far as the entire season is concerned. But like during that period,
that question though is, Drew,
yeah,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if someone gets hurt right now and what we're going to do to replace them, because ownership, management knows this is not our Super Bowl year.
It's not.
We don't need to worry about that right now.
Right.
That's why
I agree.
Right.
Right.
And that's why they're not burning draft capital or making trades for, second contract mid-depth guys, right? That's not our future.
Right. So everyone was talking about Roquan Smith, right? Let me I don't doubt that Roquan Smith is like a cool guy. But let me just show you. I mean, and I know that not everybody loves PFF as much as I do, but let me show you how PFF grades Roquan Smith over the years. So I'm going to share my screen, Mike. We're just going to do this real quick.
I'll allow it.
Thanks. And
sorry, Funky. I didn't mean to throw you into the depths of depression. This is not our year.
Oh, it's on me. I'm sorry. So this is, can you see it?
It would behoove you to zoom in a little.
All right. So this right here, this column is how he has graded
overall
over his first 4 years in the NFL. This is awful. These are we should replace you, or you're an average player numbers. And this is his first game in the slop that they happen to beat the 49ers in, but I don't want, so here's the thing, he's a good tackler. He's a decent pass rush guy. He is terrible in run defense. So all the people that are out there that are saying we need to go get Roquan Smith to shore up the run game, fill the gap and take the guy down. That's not what he does.
Yeah.
That's not what he does. And you want to pay that guy 20 plus to be on this team? You want to have it be Jared Goff, Roquan Smith, Taylor Decker as the foundational portions of this squad? Oh my God. I almost threw up in my mouth, So here's the next point about why this rebuild wasn't going to happen quickly. They have no depth. They had no depth for years. Matt Millen, Martin Mayhew, the thing that they are known for about their time in Detroit was that so few of their mid to late round picks made the roster that you didn't have a foundation. You couldn't even develop players because they weren't around long enough to learn how to play the game of football or how your team wanted to play the game. And so, like, when you are constantly having to turn over your roster in such huge chunks, year in, year out, just trying to find talent, you burn up your cap space, you don't develop players, you can't have any kind of continuity, and you have the last 65 years look like what the Detroit Lions look like.
And you overpay for free agents because nobody else wants to go there.
How else are you supposed to get talent on the team, right?
Right.
So
come to Detroit. The winners are terrible. The team is bad. The fans are really moody, but we'll throw a bag full of money at you.
Yeah.
That's
and some of those things are getting better, but like some of them are never going to get better.
Yeah.
Like you still have to play in Michigan.
Yeah, you still have to play in Michigan. Our winters still suck. Our roads are still bad.
Roads are terrible. To be fair, they're probably living where the roads are pretty good, but like don't go anywhere else. You mean like so I mean like there was no depth 4 years. So like last year it was a complete player evaluation year. You were just like, who's going to, and like this year you go into it and you're like, we kind of know what our wide receiver room looks like and what our linebacking room looks like, on and on and on throughout the roster. Cool. Great. That some of that dust has settled a little bit. We're not done, so you're developing depth. That does not happen overnight. Here's the next thing that I think indicates that they are not playing on a year by year basis. They drafted players who are hurt.
Yeah.
Like there's
we don't want this guy just for a year.
Right.
I don't care if he plays this year. I want him to play 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now.
Right. So Jamison Williams, Josh Paschal, James Mitchell, this last class, all drafted with a known injury.
Yep.
Groin, ACL. Now Mitchell's playing. He played in some of the preseason games. He's on the active roster. He's not on the PUP list. He's back. What are you complaining about? So Paschal, that problem. Oh, Christian Watson from the Rams game. Shit, when that happened, I was like, oh, this is exactly the worry about this kid. Super fast, super big, went to an FCF school, 12.9 drop percentage in college on a team that hardly ever threw the ball. When you're dropping the ball and you're only seeing like 60 targets a year and you've got a 13% drop percentage, I run screaming.
And you're getting thrown the ball from someone who has zero tolerance.
No tolerance
for anybody that's not him.
I immediately laughed and then felt bad for the kid because Aaron Rodgers is doing some voodoo doll shit, poking the needle into him or whatever from his like weird cave or whatever that he lives in on his hallucinins and Percocet. So I mean, like, yeah, I'm not. Christian Watson's got to be having a shit time in Green Bay right now. He better catch the ball next time. So like when you hear like Brad Holmes, Aaron Glenn, Dan Campbell talk about these players that they drafted who are hurt, they all say the same thing, which I think is probably what their PR team put them on, and like, this is how we want you to refer to these guys. They're investments. We're investing in these players. Like the best thing that could happen for these guys this season, they heal up, they come back at some point, TBD, they get real snaps, the game slows down for them in some capacity. You're forgiven.
Yeah.
And you go into the off season, and you do like what Deandre Swift and Jeff Okudah and like Ali McNeil did, and you get in the best shape of your life. You come back ready, to go for next season.
Right.
So let me just reiterate here from this point. No foundation, no depth, salary cap needed to be reset. Players drafted as investments, not as immediate impact starters.
Yep.
So
they can be both, right?
Sure.
But the point is the long-termness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're almost at an hour and a half, and I promised Mike that we wouldn't go much longer than that. So like when you are watching the game, when you are talking to somebody, when you are listening to someone else talk about the Lions or any football team, think to yourself, like, have I been hearing this same thing for 15 years? Is it still true? Like, what am I seeing on the field on a week by week basis? Like, is my team running nickel and we don't need 3 off the ball linebackers? Is Houston still playing Tampa 2 because Lovie Smith is their head coach? God, I hope not, but they probably are. Like, that kind of thinking needs to evolve at every level of what's going on in football. Management, ownership, coaching, players, and fans. And why is it important for fans to do this? Because our expectations come from what we know, right? And if we think we know what's best for the team or how to win a football game, then we will get on our soapboxes and we will say things like, the Lions have the 5th easiest schedule in the league. You need to win 10 games, otherwise it's a lost season. Hutchinson needs to have 10 sacks or he's not worth the number 2 overall pick. We should have picked a safety instead. Like, you need to have 100-yard a game rusher if you're going to win these games. So we need to, like, hand the ball to Swift 25 plus times a game. No, that's not it anymore.
Well, and one of the things to think about is
bigger.
Why? I know, but then this stupid ad comes up and
that's true. You need to get not ads.
I know. But one of the things, I can make it just a touch bigger. One of the things to think about is, why do we think?
I'm trying to read the words, Michael.
There
it goes. Hooray!
I don't know what happened, but
just
you son of a.
The internet sucks.
Anyway,
shift everything to the right. Just make it happen. I don't know how to. You're the computer guy. I mean,
I know. So ultimately, I think we can probably see it kind of a little bit better now.
Yeah.
But the real question that you should ask yourself is, why do we think it's going to be easy? Why do we think a rebuild can be fast? How many teams have done that? The Bengals, it's been a couple years. That was about as fast as I've ever seen.
Well, their quarterback hit immediately.
Their Jamar Chase, their second kind of like big pick hit immediately.
Yeah.
And they actually had a pretty good foundation. They had a ton of cap space, and they spent $130 million on free agency because they got their cap in order, right? So if the stars line up, you can do it fast. But outside of that, the Buccaneers, they had a pretty solid thing. They went and they grabbed Brady. The Rams had a solid team. They grabbed Stafford. The Chiefs and the Niners, they both had none of these were like quick things. They were long-term things. They came over a bunch of years. Just even flipping back through here, Atlanta certainly wasn't. Matt Ryan was there for a decade or 15 years before that. Carolina, Cam Newton was in his like 9th season there. Like, where? Just going back through here, where was another one where there was within the first 4 years of what we would consider a rebuild or like major overhaul? It was the Bengals. But that recency bias goes, oh, well, if the Bengals can do it, it's easy.
Right.
No.
We could be them.
We could be maybe. Only if we hit on the next quarterback.
Only if you are basically right all the time, which is a stupid bar to for anybody for any reason.
But those are the things that drive me nuts. People are like, well, it happens all the time. And I'm like, prove it.
So here's my favorite part about the prove it thing. So like I see that come up the most when it's like you don't need an elite quarterback to guide your team, right?
Because Brad Johnson and Joe Flacco and
Trent Dilfer, right?
Yeah, Johnson and Dilfer the main two, but Flacco to me also was a mediocre at best overachiever in that regard.
So that was the Baltimore San Francisco. What year was that?
Hold on, let me zoom out just a touch. Baltimore, San Francisco, 2013, 9 years ago.
That was 2 years into the current CBA, right?
Yeah.
So like the Trent Dilfer one was like 20 years ago.
That was 03, right?
I mean, I'm happy to have a discussion with people about certain topics like this, but if you can't give me an example,
and not just one example, you need to have some sort of trend, or not an outlier.
And like, so what I usually see with these arguments is like it's either taking place 10 to 20 years ago, or the exception that proves your point of view. Right. So it's like, well, you can just get a quarterback from another team and win a Super Bowl. Look, Brady did it. Look, Stafford did it. And I'm like, yeah, it's happened twice in NFL history, and it's those two dudes.
Yeah. So you got elite quarterbacks going to already good playoff quality teams.
Yeah, exactly. So like, here's a stat that I think that like I should use now when I am confronted with something like that. That a team that goes into the fourth quarter and kneels on the ball 3 consecutive times wins 100% of those games. If a team has kneeled 3 consecutive times in a football game, that team has won that game 100% of the time. Go back and check for however long you need to check for.
Right. And once you get in the fourth quarter, just kneel, baby.
If you start the fourth quarter with the ball, kneel down 3 consecutive times, we'll just go to the locker rooms.
Right. Your odds skyrocket.
It doesn't work that way, right? So my hope is that like for the 2 to 3 people that are listening to us on a weekly basis, and like welcome, thank you, Funky, for being here again. Jerome, welcome. Chrome was here in the chat a little bit. If you guys are talking to someone about football or about the Lions, just ask yourself, is that what football looks like now? Yeah. Because if what they're saying and what you're seeing don't mesh up almost perfectly, you have to say to yourself, what's the difference here? Why is it different? Yeah. And just take that next step in your thinking. You don't need to go 2-3 steps down the road and become some super expert about anything, but just say, that's not what I'm seeing on.
Is that still the case?
Right. That's a great thing to say, Mike. Good job. Is that still the case? Because I'll bet in most situations it's not.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do here. I am not trying to shove my opinion down everyone's throat who can hear the sound of my voice. Most of what informs my opinion is what I am seeing and learning about from the way the NFL is doing it, like the way the Detroit Lions are running their offense or running their team. So like the next time that like the draft comes up, I can look back and say, Brad Holmes doesn't seem to be scared to trade up in the draft or trade during the draft. He's made several trades throughout each draft, the 2021 and 2022 draft. He's willing to draft injured players. He likes drafting team captains. So these are some of the like, not red flags, but like the markers that I'm going to try and look for to inform my opinion.
Right.
And it's not based upon what I want them to do. It's about observing what they have done and using that as a predictive tool to move into the future. And if you can get your head in toward that line of thinking, I think that you're going to be able to be right more often than not. And I like being right. I don't know about you, but like most of the people that I've met enjoy it.
I like winning. And the only way you can win is you have to be right a lot. Right? It's you have to make the right choices. You have to have the right pieces around you. You have to have the right scheme. You have to make the right decisions. You have to be right a lot.
And you have to be a little bit lucky. I mean, like that. I mean, you have to have players not get hurt. You have to have the ball bounce your way sometimes. Like there's a component of randomness.
Good.
Right. 10 a.m. Jesus Christ.
10 a.m. Wednesday. So, happy Wednesday. Happy hump day.
Yep. So, I mean, like how many times in life have you done everything right and still not gotten the result that you were hoping for? So,
yeah.
there's a component of randomness to winning the Super Bowl, even when you do everything perfectly. So, like, whether it's Tracy Walker getting ejected, whether it's throwing a pick six or not calling an onside kick in the third quarter, like, you can't give those things back and get unlucky and then be like, why didn't we win?
Yeah.
You have to eliminate and purge that kind of stuff so that when you do get unlucky, it's not as damaging.
Yeah.
And I think that this is the thing, like when Dan Campbell says after the game, like, you know, the crowd was great. You know, we have to clean up some of this stuff. That's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Well, did we do it?
Well, we're at 1:30 and 17 seconds. So we've run a little long. But
I like talking. So
yeah, I mean, we could talk forever. My stomach is like, no, you need to dinner. Eat. So, welcome Jerome and Chrome. I'm not sure who Chrome is. I don't remember Chrome from before.
He pops in. He doesn't say much, but like I've seen
a car guy.
I don't know.
I remember there was a guy who was like a car guy who made a joke, or maybe it was a joke, maybe it wasn't, about something about Fords, and I thought this was a car podcast or something.
Oh, that was my buddy Tom being an asshole.
Oh, damn it, Tom.
Yeah.
That sounds like Tom.
He came up with some weird YouTube like login that he'd had for years.
Yeah.
So and then he like I can't remember what it was. Wheels, I think, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that, you know. So anyways, yeah. But if you guys have comments, questions, constructive criticism, please feel free to hit us up at our email for the show, casualgmpodcast@gmail.com. We'll get to them on air. I have another podcast. We've always read every single question that we are submitted by people who listen to us. That's something we'd love to do here as well. So feel free. Doesn't matter what it is. We'll be happy to touch on it.
Yeah, spread the word. Drew, you still have the Ravens cap on. Drew is going to be.
They won this weekend.
Subscribers, we're going to get him a Lions cap.
Yep. So if the Lions, now if we hit 50 subscribers,
yep,
I will
trade it out.
Pick out some Lions caps for the people to pick which one I wear. So
right on.
Sounds good.
I like it. So like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. That we can get the 50 subs. You know, if you think this is fun, if you think this is interesting, if you think we're wrong and you want to tell people about it, tell people about us. Whether you think we're wrong or right, it's just about making a community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's neat when someone like Jerome shows up for the first time. I think it's neat that Funky's here virtually every week, you know, and we've been doing this now for almost 5 months. So, you know, we'll be here probably another 5, you know, who knows?
I hope so. Like,
until they cancel us.
That's not the way this works.
I know. Well, I mean, until we get syndicated, I mean, right?
We're almost there, buddy.
Yeah, we're so close. So,
all right. Well, make sure you go. Definitely, I try to do that. The Lions Lounge, Detroit Lions on the Prowl, and then Maniac Sports. Just kind of join that group as well. So we'll throw the links in there.
Mike is our link guy.
Yeah, I'm kind of the link guy. So I just kind of copy paste it in there, let people know. And so I think I'm going to go eat.
Sounds good, man. Have a good one.
All right. Take care, everybody. Appreciate you.
See ya.
All right. Bye.